It is a panel, and I'm going to welcome three new participants here. One of them is Fatima Alam. Fatima is really an accomplished product strategy, R&D, M&A person who happens to be the head of the M&A function at UKG, a local large software company that merged with Kronos a couple of years ago, right?
Yes.
And she does look at where the company should go in terms of adding new technologies, including Gen AI and so on. So
3 to 5 year time horizon.
How many years?
The 3 to 5 year time horizon.
So you have some knowledge about what's coming down the pike.
Yes, and my background is in cybersecurity. I was a cybersecurity engineer first.
So wonderful. Yeah. So we'll have some great conversation. Come on point. And then another new participant I'd like to welcome, Jorge Ortega. I've known Jorge for about 5 years now. He's the head of the Cybersecurity Center of the Americas, right next door, which is a cyber range to simulate different attacks and actually have all of our CISSPs and other cyber professionals practice as a pilot would practice after getting their licenses. So he's got some experience in the arena. And we're going to welcome back Charles, who's the agent provocateur of the day, who's always ready with some out-of-the-box ideas. And of course, Mike as the host and the bridge to the neuro side. And so this is really a little bit of a freewheeling fireside session. We do have a couple of questions, but I absolutely welcome questions from the audience, what remains in the audience, because we were a few more in the morning. But I'll just kick it off since we just had Michael here. So we heard this morning, David told us how there are bots out there who are attacking, and the other bot is trying to prevent. And in real time, they're fighting out there. And we're here trying to manage our institutions, our teams, our defenses with real time and with the clock. How does that translate? Thank you. How does that translate into our ability to manage speed? And you are doing a curriculum in AI. I was going to suggest in addition to AI ethics, what are you teaching people about AI speed? How are your students going to be able to deal with speed? Speed, because AI is moving at quantum speed. How are we humans who wake up in the morning and go and the Beatles would say, "Wake up, comb your hair," whatever the song was.
I would answer that question by saying, like, going back to Miami-Dade College, that the speed means two things. It means more people doing it, not just PhDs and masters and major. These David mentioned these, like, the major companies that are promulgating and creating these large language models and things like that. But we at Miami-Dade College are calling this blue collar AI. That's actually a term by one of the people on our industry advisory board, Aaron Borsiaga. He talks about blue collar AI, and that is these jobs coming online that do not require or will not require like research level, PhD level people. But so we're solving that problem here at Miami-Dade College. That's exactly what we're doing. We are giving you an AI literacy, an AI mindset, which Charles mentioned. I love that term. And an introduction to AI ethics and responsible AI and how AI can be applied in the real world to solve real world problems.
What's the speed?
But that's what I'm saying. The answer to speed, right, is to get more people online who are AI literate and can make ethical AI decisions to then, that's the only way to keep up is more people doing better, making better decisions.
So is the mechanical Turk thing? It's like,
yeah.
Anything in there, going maybe a little bit also to you, Fatima, what new technologies do you see that are promising in which you would invest? As a holder of a technology portfolio at a large institution and you at a software company, what do you see?
So you asked me to come and be the contrarian, so I came to be the troll. I think the problem is bigger than generative AI. I think generative AI and ChatGPT specifically was the fastest application to reach 1 million users. It was within 5 days, they had 1 million active daily users. It's the fastest in history. So to your point about how are we going to speed up and get people educated? I think people are already starting to educate themselves. It's really about getting them to understand how do we use AI ethically, responsibly? And as far as what we're investing in, I think there's a lot of baseline things that need to be automated. And I think generative AI can automate a lot of workflows. That's really where I'm looking at. That's the money, but that does take a lot of our services jobs. So when you're talking about our blue collar work or the services, like people picking up our phones, customer support, that does eliminate some jobs, but it allows for upscaling and rescaling. And on top of that, then we get into skills databases and graph databases, which is more of my expertise and the fun place. But that's where we can really find opportunities for people to grow based on the skills that they have today.
And so, okay.
Well, I was just going to mention on the speed or the platform we use. One of the things that we're doing a lot of work on with the engineering team is to bring AI to the adversarial side. Yes. Right. So as was talked about, dynamic evasion, right? So that the AI, the way we have it now, the attacker is pre-programmed to use a certain attack vector, et cetera, and pivot in certain ways at certain points. But to be able to have that adversary do it dynamically and depending on what the team is doing to contain it, to respond to it, for that AI to be able to then pivot and do something differently, then the person that's training on that platform is experiencing what's really happening, right? And then also to the point of the products that we use in our platform, we expect the AI features to roll into them from the big vendors. So it's not so much adding new products or teaching that you have to be faster. It's more like teaching them how to work with the AI, both from an adversarial and a defense perspective. So
you're already integrating all this into your everyday.
We're working on that. Correct.
Yeah. Cool. Yeah. Well, great. Yes.
Something I'll add is just a perspective, a dimension to look at this is when you mentioned speed, in my mind, I correlate that to knowledge. And so what Gen AI has done has enabled an incredible democratization of knowledge that allows you to learn much faster with less limitations. And so when you look at the human creativity in terms of how to apply this tech, it's about what they've learned, how to do that, and the experimentation they do, and the subsequent learning of that experimentation, which is what I find to be scary, because that is a sequence that, though it's human powered now, will be machine learning powered tomorrow. And so that learning, that automated learning and scale of learning is probably the scary thing when it comes of speed, because now you're looking at your opponent who knows more, has learned more, and is using that knowledge against you.
Have you, I don't think there's somebody here from the cyber curriculum. Do you know if the cyber curriculum is revising its content also, or its offerings?
It's in the works.
Yeah.
It's in the works. And obviously there's no, it wasn't by luck that the AI Center and the Cybersecurity Center are next to each other. Right. Because the idea has always been that this is, it's all interconnected, right? Technology in general, it is, right? You can't be in these silos. So it's not like whether you're AI or you're cyber or you're cloud, you have to be everything. And so we're working on bringing that both to the degree side and the continuing education side.
Well, Fatima, you mentioned that everybody's getting
so I think
indoctrinated or educated by themselves on the spot. So
indoctrinated might be a scary word, but I think we're a few steps away from that. I don't think we're that far. I think to the point about speed, with speed also has come degradation of a lot of these models. So if you look at Copilot, so a lot of my friends are still engineers. I haven't been hands-on keyboard in a long time, but Copilot has actually degraded in how the quality of the code that it puts out. And there's more and more cases of hallucinations with all sorts of LLMs. So I think with speed, there's going to come more and more issues as well. So yeah, which is where, and then I love the points about like behavioral psychology and neuroscience, because I think that's where the actual, that's where the real vectors of attack are. Like, let's get into the human psyche and like maybe into, there's a term in psychology, it's called the imp of the perverse, which is basically like your lowest common denominator. So how can people use their basis instincts, or how can AI use people's basis instincts against them? I think that's where it's much more dangerous.
That's great news.
Yeah, I hope so.
Yes, please, David.
Thanks.
I actually just wanted to comment on the speed topic as well, and it's in relation to a lot of what you're all talking about with respect to cybersecurity. So when I think about adversarial attacks coming from AI, I think about chess. And if you take, Magnus Carlsen, the best chess player in the world, you put him up against a chess AI, he's going to get demolished 100% of the time, no chance of winning. But it's worse than that. We knew that already in the 90s, right? But what's worse now is that if you take an AI against an AI plus Magnus Carlsen, the AI plus Magnus Carlsen will lose every time. The human can add nothing to that equation, right? Even the best chess player that's ever lived will actually only add error margin over the AI. And so if I think about adversarial AI growing to this capability, what it seems to imply is that if you have attacker AIs, the only defense you can have is defender AIs, and that a human can only subtract from the ability to defend against those things. No, you have to take humans out of the loop completely, because they're gonna get to a point where you're not gonna, like, the speed at which humans operate and the amount of context which humans can hold in their skull will be completely irrelevant at the scale that they're operating. I'm more talking about the exponential growth that's coming. And I'm not sure that a phishing attack becomes necessary if humans leave the loop, right? Like if we're talking direct systemic attacks on core infrastructure, automated exploitation of code vulnerabilities, of which there are hundreds of thousands of them in the wild, right? And an infinite number of vectors that could be created, or even more sophisticated attacks, such as releasing libraries that work for everybody but are vulnerable for one system, right? And a fully AI automated system that does stuff like that, right? And things that we can't think about because they exceed, the Michael wants to say something here, but yeah. So, okay, I'll shut up.
No, okay, thank you. I think, so you used the Magnus Carlsen example, you used the Zelensky example, right? Those are two fantastically different examples from a neuroscience perspective. And so I think there's some, not, either or, but both and here. I think in general, humans should always be kept in the loop. Outside of AI versus AI, I also think just humans should be kept in the loop in general. But I kind of would tend to agree with you. I think there are, I think like, well, it's even in terms of the neuroscience, right? There's a 90% of what goes on in your brain is non-conscious, right? Only some of it makes it to conscious awareness, right? So there's a lot of non-conscious processing going on, things like even intuition, and perception that goes beyond the ability of conscious perception. So I think that there's, in your example, it's absolutely makes sense. In the chess example, it also makes sense. But I just want to point out from a neuroscientific perspective, those are two quite qualitatively distinct examples. So I don't think.
No, that was actually kind of the thesis of my presentation, which is reinforcement learning, which is the same model behind the AlphaGo project, is the improvisation and creativity that the AI itself is coming up with. And so we're for people that are in the applied AI reinforcement, we're already there. It hasn't hit mainstream per se, so it's not like everyone has access to their equivalent of ChatGPT to do that. But that's probably going to be the next wave of productivity and solutions that are going to be coming out probably within the next 12 months. I would say calendar months. But the way that works comes different from the neurological view. And so, by the way, David, if you like whiskey, we get together often and debate nonstop. Yes. And I am determined to show him that I'm going to make a proof of concept neural network that has theory of mind. But in this, yes, I'll invite you as well. You don't have to like whiskey, just come hang out. But in the arguments that we've had in the past, one of the things that we kind of focus on a lot on is humans have an intuition to say, okay, I'm going to do an experiment. I'm going to make a hypothesis. And it's a pretty well-educated hypothesis because of the theory of mind. The machine version of that is, I'm just going to brute force this thing. A/B testing like crazy, but because I can. I have the computational power to do this 1,000 times, and I'll figure it out. And probably I'll figure it out faster than the human, although the human might intuit. So I think there's two different paths, and I think I just gave you ammunition to fight me back, but there's a conversation there, and we're literally right there. Sorry.
Yeah, I have some questions to the panel. If any of you are familiar with voice GPT and video GPT, and specifically GPT like call.any.ai or 640 call Sam, running on a head-mounted device like this. This is realware head-mounted tablet, running it on the head of security guards or analysts in real time. And this is call.any.ai is a voice-enabled AI that listens constantly and speaks back. And the security guard could have an earpiece so that he will not share the discussion with the chatbot, with the environment, but he will listen constantly. And the chatbot, this is a Chat GPT 3.5 mounted on top of it, voice to text and text to voice. So it creates a fluid discussion with a person and transcribes in 20 different languages in real time and creates a history verbatim transcript, can be broadcasted live to a remote server or remote supervisor. Like he can be sitting in Miami and I can be in Honolulu securing, and he can listen and participate in everything in real time. Yeah, the question is, and it's specifically what Mike said, non-invasive, this is a Velcro strap that is very similar to the Muse, mounted also on the head for security purposes. And it will detect anomalies in real time before it actually happened and warn the security guard, look, this guy that is weird, he dresses weirdly, you should check him out. Maybe he carries something that we don't want him to carry in here.
If you don't mind,
I'm a software engineer, but I don't know too much. Regarding speed, right? The question comes in of how have we thought of a kill switch for this machine, right? We have human intelligence, and then we have this machine and artificial intelligence, and our need or want to become the most powerful with it, right? Basically, make more money, but at what cost can that affect humans and the human society? And how dangerous would it be once IoT devices or other things start coming into play into our, into our environment?
I'll just start with, we're already there. GPT-7, like Sam Altman has come out and said that there's a possibility that there might not be a kill switch. I'll leave it at that.
Well, one more thing, sorry, just so you guys can answer me. Regarding speed, right? Cars used to or still have something called a governor, right? So what about the governance and the seeing of this and its speed of evolution, because Michael's example is something that should be very scary and also beneficial for us to possibly be as healthy as possible. So
there's a great video that's now making it viral rounds. Arthur C. Clarke, the great science fiction writer, who he's speaking and he's saying that it should be a privilege for us to move aside for artificial superintelligence. We should take it as a privilege, a stepping stone, an evolutionary stepping stone, just like we did to Cro-Magnon, right? So it's this sort of thing. I think the mistake he actually makes in that is that it's a speed argument. It's a rate argument, right? Because biological evolution is enormously slow and technological evolution is obviously a lot quicker, right? And so I think that's, to your point, I'm just sort of agreeing with you. There might not be a kill switch. Again, doesn't matter if they're conscious, probably doesn't matter if they're conscious or not, but getting back to the points I was making, but yeah, I think that's a scary thought.
I'm happy to say.
So if the artificial intelligence requires such vast amounts of energy for its computations, then can that potentially be that even with the energy requirements that AI has, or rather, can that be used as a type of defense? Let's just say if we know that the models are going to be so advanced, they're going to be so powerful, then, and we have so much innovation in the development. I mean, is there also development in, ways of which to defend against this?
Just because you're using an assumption that it's not frozen, which is no innovation in energy creation. And so we're going to get better at energy creation and more efficient with it, which means that we can do more with it.
I'm going to say this one more thing.
Yeah.
It's not that assumption. Human incentives are not there to limit these AI.
And I guess I can,
Right. So if you look at what we did for OpenAI released GPT, they ran a test to see if it could go centric. They just tested it. Where did they test it? It's not active, right? Connected to the internet, the ability to write code on private. And it's not like security. There's no kill switch. I'm not putting it in a safe little box where you can say, oh, it's you throw it against the argument. No, we're getting one of these well, next to the you can say, oh, it's but that's the incentives for driving migration. They go down like, okay, we're pushing transportation.
So, David, I want to respond to your point, but okay, I'll do it over here.
A lot of questions. So regarding, things are evolving so fast, and I'm deliver making similarity very, very soon. So in this day and time, there are new innovations coming out every single day, and it's even so hard right now to catch up. So what will be your suggestion for people and how to navigate through this year in terms of that? Is it potential growth in terms of innovation, like innovation, and how we choose this? Okay, well.
Just welcome our new overlords. You guys, this is spot. No, I'm kidding.
Obsequious.
You wanted to say something?
Okay.
I do
Okay,
too.
so we'll wait for the
I
counter.
want to counter
but-
both of you at the same time.
My gut check is to lean into your humanity. There's a lot of things that AI cannot yet do that people can. And so when we're talking about brainstorm, so I work in the innovation ideation sort of portion of M&A, which didn't really it exists, but it's like I live in a weird world where that does exist. And I'll use AI as like a precursor when I'm doing research and things like that, competitive scans. But I think have it be like a horse, like in the Barbie movie, a horse is a man extender. AI is a people extender. Use it like that, I think, and be aware of the limitations of yourself as well as you're using it, and how much your language and how much your thinking changes as you use it. So just be cognizant and lean into your humanity would be my,
I think to bring it all together with the original question about the kill switch, I was going to lean a little bit harder than Mike and Fatima, which is actually maybe I don't want a kill switch. To the point of my presentation, I want the augmented intelligence. I want to be able to do more, scale faster, move quicker, innovate, move faster. And then with that said, I don't think AI is sentient in the way that we think about it. So
Agreed,
unfortunately,
yes.
I'm going to give him some fighting
you.
power.
Thank you.
I agree with the approach that you're talking about, but at the end of the day, when I have executives that come to me and be like, ChatGPT, I want AI, how do I get this all to work? And I try to kind of reset their thinking on this. I tell them, look, ChatGPT is like a circus mirror. It's taking the corpus of information and knowledge that we have and regurgitating it back to us as if it's new. It's actually everything we already know. But what's good about that is how you use it is going to make you that much more productive, but it's not sentient. It has no idea what it's thinking. It's just predicting the best word, which is some kind of number matrix.
It's not even close to being slightly conscious.
Exactly.
And my point, to point really quickly, let me just cut you
Yes.
off. The only reason that you brought up the kill switch, right, I think, is from science fiction.
Yeah.
That's our only frame of reference.
Right.
Our only frame of reference is Isaac Asimov's The Last Question, Arthur C. Clarke's, Robert Heinlein. There's no, in my opinion, given what I know about, given what we as a field know about neuroscience, right, and consciousness research. David, you mentioned the science of consciousness earlier this morning in your talk. I think there are phenomenal scientific theories of consciousness. All of this, by the way, highlights the need to pour more funding into researching the humanities, into philosophy, and into science of consciousness research. But that's an assumption. And I'm not sure the speed issue. This is back to the speed issue, right? In AI versus AI and cybersecurity, there is, right? But when we talk about a kill switch, the only frame of reference we have is Skynet, is the Matrix, the machines. I think that's the only frame of reference. There's no reason to believe that assumption holds, given what we know about cognitive neuroscience and what it requires to be the necessary and sufficient criteria for something to be conscious currently. Agreed. Precautionary principle.
Let me rework this paradigm, if I may. 20 years from now, we're going to be looking back at this moment. We're going to be looking back at this moment the same way that right now we would look back at the protests and the outrage in the 70s of the pocket calculator, where teachers were like, let's just get rid of batteries and then you can't use calculators. Like the logic now doesn't make any sense, but back then it was completely logical. It was like, that's what we should do. Like that's how we're talking about this moment right now. And I would say, let this settle in a little bit more. 20 years from now, we're going to be talking about something completely different that's changing our paradigm thinking. And we're going to be looking back at this and be like, we were such toddlers when talking about this stuff, just to kind of reset.
So I think there's an open invitation to visit the security center next door. And Jorge is the head of that, so please follow that. But please, Jorge,
No, I mean, just to echo what everyone's saying, I think we have to lean into the AI. I think we have to, go more into it and really understand its practical use. And in the kill switch, I know that comes up a lot, and I just feel like it's not really practical. It's not something that could really be implemented with any wide scale. And we see what the European Union's trying to do now with AI and regulate that, like they've done with data privacy. And so it remains to be seen what happens there. But my concern with that is when you start regulating what can be done with AI, the adversaries don't have those same regulations, right? So they're going to build the better machine, so to speak. And so we also have to be careful that we can match, almost like, arm for arm with the adversaries. So I just think, again, to echo what everyone's saying, we have to lean into it, learn as much about it, and not fear it. There's been fear throughout all history about all new innovation. Eventually we learn how to use it to maximize productivity.
thank you.
Yeah. To piggyback on Jorge's point, I think let's look at it as what it is. It's a tool, right? All of these things are tools, and just like social media, right? Sometimes it can overrule you and your own thinking. Be cognizant of that. When you're using any of these tools, whether it be generative AI, AGI, whatever happens, and I know you don't believe in it, but it might happen. So remember, it's a tool, and I think that's what I'll leave you with.
It's easy subscribers. I think what I would like to leave behind for you guys, especially for the reason why you came here for cybersecurity and to learn, I would say that she said it better. Gen AI is just a tool. It's the first of many different iterations and new things that have been coming out. And what I implore you to do is don't look for a kill switch, hit the accelerator, and go as deep into it as you can, and really look into some of the topics that was covered today, especially digital immune systems. It's something that I want to make very, very practical in cybersecurity, and as well as tools around reinforcement learning, where we get that learning and improvisation without having that historical knowledge in place, is a fascinating new branch, not new branch, but relatively young area of research that I would love more people in.
And I'll leave everybody with a more philosophical point. About 20 years ago, Carl Sagan, the late astronomer, wrote a book called The Demon Haunted World, Science as a Candle in the Dark. And in it, he said, we live in a world exquisitely dependent on science and technology, in which almost nobody knows anything about science and technology. And that's a problem. I think that's a huge, huge problem, especially at the upper echelon of our government. So my message is to be literate, right? Be scientifically literate as an informed citizen so that we can get this off the ground right, and be technologically and even computationally literate. So AI literate. So going back to Charles's point, AI as a mindset, we all need that. Like we can't, we'll all be left behind if we don't have that. So I'll leave you with that.
Thank you all very much. Great session. Thank you.
you.